Good morning, everyone. This is Don again, and it is time for episode 31 of Practical Reality. And here I am, as you can see again. I'll turn my phone around one more time. I am at the beautiful New Jersey shore. It is a perfect beach day. Probably going to be like mid 80s today. Not much humidity, which is a change, which is really good to see. So it's not really sticky out. I'm sure I'll be going in the water very soon. Nothing keeps me out of the water when I go to the beach. I would never come to the beach without actually being able to go in the water. And I also checked the chance of riptides today, very low chance of riptides. So today's topic is going to be what triggers you. And it's funny, I thought of this topic in the middle of the men's team meeting that I lead each week, or I will be leading now for the next few months. And the other thing that occurred to me when I first thought of that topic was, wow, why hadn't I thought of this topic earlier? Because it's so obvious. Everyone has triggers, and everyone may not be able to deal or may not understand how to deal with the triggers that set them off. And it's so important as a matter of internal regulation to be able to understand what triggers you, what sets you off, and how long you let it affect you. And that is really the key question right there. How long do you let the things that trigger you keep you in a state or a reactive state? That is a very important question to consider. And I'm going to talk about my own triggers, and I'm going to see if you can identify yours. Let's see what we can do here. So what is a trigger? Okay. I think the easiest definition is something that sets you off, that changes your mood dramatically. Okay, and most of the time that's for the worse. So a trigger is something that pisses you off or makes you depressed, something like that, okay? Now, what are my triggers? I really only have two triggers left. I used to be angry a lot, okay? In my 30s and 40s, I spent a lot of time being just angry as hell. And it was not productive and not good for me, and it cost me a lot. So when I hit rock bottom, I had to start considering exactly how I had lived my life and where I needed to change. And the beginning of my spiritual journey, it was at that point where I started examining where I had been, what I had done, and what the person I was raised to be. And I realized that I had drifted so far away from the person I was raised to be that I had to start over, strip myself bare and start over. But that still was not the time when I identified what my own triggers were. That came much, much later. In fact, I've probably only been able to identify them within the past 2 or 3 years, exactly what triggers me, and begin to control exactly how long I am triggered by these things. So I have two triggers really, as I said. Number one is just blatant stupidity. When I see someone acting just like a complete moron on the news, in social media, just on the road probably is my other trigger. Traffic and just poor driving. That's the other thing that triggers me. And of course, that's a very common trigger for people. Road rage is a thing. I mean, is a real thing. Road rage is something that people, they lose complete control. I'm sure people have seen these videos of people getting out of their cars, walking over to other people's cars and screaming at them through the window. And I believe I read a story not that long ago of someone who got out of his car and shot somebody because they were angry at them on the road, which is well beyond any acceptable behavior, and obviously carried serious consequences. So blatant stupidity, just like willful ignorance. I remember, and this trigger has been in my life for a long time, because I remember being in an interview when I was fresh out of school, 22 years old, this kind of thing, and someone asked me what really, what I hate or what I despise. And that was the answer I gave. So I've been aware of this for a long time, but was I aware of how it triggered me and how it affected me and how long I let it affect me for? Not at all, okay? I was unconscious. And I think that's the most important thing to realize about your triggers. When you get triggered, you go into a reactive state that is completely unconscious. And the beginning of consciousness, at least one stage of consciousness, one aspect of consciousness, is the realization that you are triggered, and that now is the time to get back to create the space in your mind between your trigger and your own consciousness and get back to where you should be instead of where you are. So what is the immediate effect of being triggered? You get angry. Maybe your adrenaline starts to pump. Maybe you pound your fist. I mean, I'm giving my own examples here, okay? You know what your triggers are. You know what your reactions are, okay? And I remember when I was having my total breakdown. I had a nervous breakdown when I was 40 years old, and I was triggered for years after that, months, years after that. It just, every day, living in a complete state of just like fear, uncertainty, no confidence, feeling like my world was shrinking down to nothing. That was severe, okay? Actually, that's the reference point that I now have for knowing when I'm triggered, when I start to feel like that. That's called backsliding. I know, and that doesn't really happen to me anymore. But I know now that, looking back on it, that I was living in this permanent state of being triggered with no hope, no sort of upside, no feelings of like optimism. And that's a very poor state. That's an incredibly low vibrational frequency to live in, okay? So that's the key aspect of triggers. They immediately lower your vibration. So what are you going to do? Are you going to allow yourself to remain in that state for an extended period of time? Or are you going to realize that this is what's happening to you? Are you going to be conscious and say, okay, I'm not going to let this affect me anymore. Here I am. I'm in this state of uncertainty. I'm in this state of rage. I'm in this state of fear. I'm in this state of doubt. What am I going to do? Am I going to stay in this state, or am I going to create the space in my mind that says, okay, here I am. This is not me. This is not who I am. I'm going to stop. I'm going to take a deep breath, and I'm going to create that space in my mind and shove my ego out of the way. Because the ego is what's keeping you in this state. The ego is the status quo, the thing that stops you from growing. Because it says everything's fine. You don't need to change. You're okay just the way you are. Because the ego fears. The ego fears change. The ego is the thing that stops you from evolution, your own personal evolution. So when you get into that triggered state, your ego kicks in and floods your mind with all those negative thoughts that may last a day, may last an hour, may last a week, may last a month, may last years, if you are not careful. If you do not have the consciousness to realize that you are triggered. And I think there are a lot of people out there who probably are triggered and who don't even realize it and are living in a state of unconsciousness constantly because they fail to realize that they have been triggered. So, as I said, when you get triggered, the initial reaction is a flood of thoughts, a flood of emotion, maybe a raising of your blood pressure, an immediate lowering of your vibrational frequency. And that's dangerous because you are taking yourself off of your path. You are departing from your spiritual path. Your internal environment is completely disrupted. And why do you want to let yourself stay that way? That's not right. It's not proper. You can be different. And it's not just something that happens overnight. I'm not saying, I remember when I was going to a therapist, and she looked at me and said, Mr. Crone, you can change like that in your next breath. And it really is true, but that's just the beginning of the change. You don't complete the change in your next breath. You simply acknowledge the fact that you need the change. It's like the first step in AA, the 12 steps, admitting that there is a problem and that you are powerless against that problem, except you are not powerless. Saying you are powerless is foregoing the power within you. And again, all answers lie within. The 4 most important words that you must remember on your spiritual journey, on your personal evolution, all answers lie within. So you can stop and take that deep breath and go, all right, this is over. This period of being triggered, of being in that low vibrational state is over. I am not going to allow this that past event, that triggering event to control me any longer. I am going to be here. I am going to be present. I am going to be happy. I am going to emerge into a state of optimism, into a state of joy, into a state of elation, into a state of gratitude, which is probably the most important emotion that there is. Because being thankful for the things that you have means that you are open to receiving more. If you are despairing over the things you don't have, then you are in a state of lack, and you are in a far lower vibrational frequency, and you will continue to attract a state of lack as a result. And if lack is what triggers you, then you must realize that that lack is controlling you, and that you have to then create that space and say, I'm moving from a state of lack into a state of gratitude, happy with what I have right now, happy in this very moment. Because if you are not, then you are in a permanent state of a lowered vibration, and you will continue to attract negative events to you, which, again, I'm not going to further explain because I've done that in many, many videos already, and that's not the topic of this video. The topic is the triggers. So let's stick with that for a moment. Remember what triggers you. If you can stop right now, pause the video for a second, and think about what are your triggers. You may come to a realization, you may come to a state where you are, wow. Like I've had those kind of aha moments in men's meetings, which I'm not going to go into, but that's what I'm trying to say. You might have that kind of realization right now while watching this video and say, wow, Don's right. And hey, I'd be right for once. This is what triggers me. And you might say to yourself, wow, I can't let that happen to me anymore. I'm costing myself a beautiful life as a result of allowing myself to be triggered. Why would you want to do that to yourself? You owe yourself a better life than that. Okay, you don't deserve to live a life in a lower vibrational frequency. You are here to create a life for yourself that is beautiful and wonderful and rewarding and fulfilling, and that you can be grateful for. Now I'm going to spill a little bit here personally, just to help my viewers to relate this to their own situation. My wife is Chinese. She's from Guangzhou in China. She did not have a great education. She grew up dirt poor. Her mindset is very difficult to change. So that's a trigger for me sometimes too, okay? She sometimes, in my estimation, displays blatant stupidity. And now I try to teach her, try to make her learn from me, but I don't want to be too forceful about it, because this is who she is. And if she's going to change, it has to come from her inside. Like I said, all answers lie within. So sometimes that triggers me, and that's a trigger that I've had to learn to live with for the past 7 years, 8, 9 years since I met her, as a matter of fact. But again, this is the essence of emotional regulation, of controlling your internal environment. How long am I going to let that trigger me? And I've gotten better. I have gotten better. And I wouldn't be making this video if I couldn't sit here right now and tell all of you that I've gotten better. Okay, so it is possible. And anytime that you face a change and you consider it impossible, it will be impossible. But any change is possible if you commit yourself to it. And this is probably one of the easiest problems to address as far as your spirituality and your personal journey is concerned. Because when you have a trigger, it's so obvious, it happens to everybody. Triggers are a common aspect of being a human being. You get triggered by something. Maybe there are monks somewhere in Thailand who have no more triggers, I don't know. But I know in this society, there are plenty of things out there to trigger you and to send you into a state of lower vibration on a daily basis, multiple times. So how are you going to let that affect you? Now, Linda and I have been married now for a little over 7 years, and I love her deeply, and it was rough in the beginning adjusting to a person who was from a different culture, completely different background, didn't even have a common language. She still doesn't speak English well, which is one of my triggers sometimes. It's like, will you please learn to speak English? She tries. She listens to English videos all the time, but it's a guy saying English with a Chinese accent, which I don't think is that helpful, to be honest with you. But again, she's out there trying. It's like the way she trying to learn to play tennis. She's not that good, if I had to rate her, she's probably like a 1.5 on a scale of 7, and I'm probably like a 3.5 or a 4. But she loves it. She gets out there, she tries hard, and she wants to play every week. So I can't say no. You know what I mean? And there's sometimes when I get triggered on the court, I'm like, come on. I'm telling you what to do. You're not listening to me. She's got to learn it for herself. She's got to learn it through sheer repetition. She's got to learn it through her own passion for the game, which she has. And that's why I got to keep going out there with her. She really wants to be able to play singles with me, just like, hit back and forth like I do with my other regular hitting partner. And I can't deny her that goal, that passion, because that's very important to her. So I stop. I have to bring myself to consciousness on the tennis court and let her just do what she needs to do to learn the game herself. So that's what I do. So I have gotten better at controlling how long I stay triggered. I may not ever be able to rid myself completely of my triggers, and I don't know if anyone can. But the question is, how long do you let them affect you? And that's incredibly important to consider, because that is the key to internal maintenance of your vibrational state. And you, as a human being, as a sentient being, have the ability to control that vibrational frequency and say, okay, I am not going to let myself sink into that state and stay there for an extended period of time. If you can shrink the period which you stay triggered down to an hour or two or less than that, then you are making major progress towards bringing yourself a more rewarding life. And that is what you are here for. And that is why this is why I come to the beach. It's New Jersey, right? So there's maybe like 3 months that are beach time, and maybe if I'm lucky I get 10 days at the beach a year, that kind of thing. I love it. And this is I get triggered on the way down here, as a matter of fact. I wanted to mention this. It's like a mission, okay? I set Waze, and it shows me how long it's going to take. Today it said 43 minutes, okay, from where I dropped Linda off at the mall. So I was like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. My mind immediately goes into like mission gear. I'm triggered into mission gear, which I don't necessarily think is the greatest state, but it's not necessarily a really low vibrational state. But my whole thing is, okay, 43 minutes. Let's see if I can beat that time. Let's see how fast I can get here, that kind of thing. So I'm in like a heightened state of like, I don't want to call it anxiety, but like, just trying to hurry. You know what I mean? I'm not completely relaxed. I'm not present during the ride because I'm trying to get here as quickly as I can, because I love this place and I want to get here as fast as I can. Is that the greatest thing for me to do? No. I count the lights. I know exactly how many lights there is between when I start out and when I get here. And actually today was good. I made like the first 9 or 10 lights before I had to stop, which is almost a record. But is that a healthy thing for me to do? No, okay? It's not. I should just be in the car, listening to the music that I have on, and just enjoying the ride. But I don't, because it's just like I'm so motivated to get here as quick as I can, and I want to be efficient in the way that is fast to get here as quick as I can, as safe as I can. So there's an example of a trigger that I need to work on. Just to be able to get in the car and not even pay attention to how long it takes me, and just enjoy the ride, smile, be in that state of elation and gratitude, and just glide down the road in my car with the music on and just say, beautiful. And that's not the way I am in the car. And that's a trigger of mine that I have to overcome and I have to work on. But the fact is that I only do it like 10 days a year, so that's why it keeps on happening, because I don't really pay that much attention to it while it's happening. So anyway, that's pretty much everything I wanted to say, but I want you to understand, being triggered is a very, very negative thing, and it's so common, and it may not be that easy to recognize because it happens so often, and you may be living in a triggered state right now and not even know it. So stop and think about how you're feeling and what kind of state you're in right now, and what kind of energy are you giving off as a result of that state. So be conscious. The recognition of your triggers is a beginning of a consciousness, and creating that space to shove your ego aside and say, okay, I'm not going to be in that triggered state for a long period of time anymore. I'm going to learn to control that. That is so important. That will bring you so much more happiness and clarity, and isn't that what we all want? I thank you all for watching this video. I hope you will like, comment, and subscribe. Spread it around. I guess that's about the only other thing I can ask my viewers to do. show it to other people, because this is so important. As a matter of fact, I probably think this is maybe like the second or third most important video that I've made, because it's such a common thing. And I thank you all for watching. I wish you all peace and prosperity on this beautiful Saturday, Sunday in New Jersey, or wherever you are. I wish you could all be here at the beach with me. That would be a party. I love parties at the beach. So enjoy yourself, peace, prosperity, and have yourself a great day. Thank you.